Here's the pitch. Line drive, there it is! Into left field! Hit number 3,000! A run is scored! Musial ran first, on his way to second with a double! Holy cow!
Hank Gibson is one strike away from the no-hitter. He takes off his cap. He mops his brow. He looks in and gets the sign. He starts the windup. Here's the pitch, and it's a strike called! A no-hitter for Gibson! Smith corks one into right down the line. It may go! Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! It's a home run, and the Cardinals have won the game by the score of 3-2 on a home run by the Wizard.
Breaking ball, hit off the pitcher, to the third baseman, down play, base hit, 3,000 for a home run.
Breeze hits it in the air to center. We will see you tomorrow night.
Shooter from the belt to the plate, a swing and a miss, and that's the winner! That's the winner! A World Series winner for the Cardinals!
Left center, Bader, diving catch, what a play! Carpenter with a drive, into left center, at the wall, gone! It's gone! Three-run homer, Carpenter! DeYoung with a drive, into deep left, at the track, at the wall, gone! Cardinals have the lead! The 2-2. Fowler swings and sends the ball into the right field corner. Hayward up and over the fence. Hayward got a glove on it. But Dexter Fowler has just walked it off. Michaelis with a drive. Deep left field. First career hit. Gone! A home run. He does it in style. A two-run shot for his first major league hit. Julio to the drive. Into center. It's at the wall. Here's a 1-2 pitch. And a strikeout. Ponce de Leon, his first strikeout in the major leagues. There he goes, and Molina from his knees. Oh, my! Wow!
Hi, I'm Miles Michaelis,
This is Marshall Falk,
and you're listening
and you're listening
to The Usual Suspects.
to The Usual Suspects.
Well, what's up, guys? I'm Brad. And I can't hear Aaron because his audio didn't work. And we've got a guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Derek.
Hey, it's me. If you haven't noticed, Derek, yours truly, Derek King from Derek King Sports, Gateway City Sports. Hope everybody's doing fantastic tonight. And Brad, hey, man, I'm glad to be on the show with you tonight and glad to cover all the craziness that's going on out there in the St. Louis sports scene.
I'm super excited about tonight's show. You're actually the first guest we've had on this year. Let me add Aaron to the stream. He's back. Aaron, are you back?
Yeah, my phone's dumb.
Okay,
I
that's
guess
all right.
whenever I went to share our feed, it was like, oh, there's new audio, so you're going to play this instead. And it just like cut this audio out completely. And I'm like, all right, cool.
I'm a little worried that we won't have a lot of engagement tonight because of the whole big issue with Facebook. And we don't have a huge YouTube following right just yet. But what we want to talk about tonight is we want to talk about the NFL, and then we'll talk Cardinals baseball because that's what we do. And we can do it in whatever order you guys want. But before we do that, what I want to do is I want to hit the socials real quick. So naturally, if you look at the screen, you can see all of our socials. You can follow me at Range Brad. You can follow Aaron at Aaron M STL, and then you can follow Derek at Derek King Sports on Twitter. We also have a show page or a show Twitter handle that's at Musial_Suspects. You can follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/Musial Suspects. And then if you go onto YouTube, you can search Musial Suspects. Musial, not musical, because it likes to autocorrect. Search Musial Suspects. Go over there, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. And that way, when Facebook does go down, you can still watch the show, and we won't have 0 viewers like we currently do right now. Don't know why that is, but anyway. We ought to have a little bit of fun tonight talking about that. Derek, do you want to do you want to talk about your social media at all so we can get the word out for you?
Well, I mean, being of the fact that Facebook is down, I mean, it's not like I spend a ton of time over there outside of doing the show. I do obviously respond to everybody's comments and things like that. I do participate in some things. But, I mean, as far as the show is concerned, that's where I spend most of my time on Facebook. I do spend a majority of my time on Twitter. Just in those timelines, being able to instantly share information, get it out to people as quick as I can. Whenever I see it, I could just pop in those, 100 or so characters, whatever I need to do, and just get the information out. So typically, Twitter is usually the way to go for me. But if you want to watch videos of shows, Facebook's great. That's fine. But you could also go over to gatewaycitysports.com. We always have the videos that are up there now that it's working again. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, it's semi-working, I guess you could say. But we do have audio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Captivate, you name it. Whatever platform, we're on it. Just go over to gatewaycitysports.com. And if you don't want to go to the website, well, then I just don't know what the hell to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it, So when Facebook's down, at least you guys have a backup website. That Gateway City Sports is actually a pretty cool little website there. And if you guys haven't checked that out, who else is on that? Gateway City Sports is yourself, show.
We've got quite a few different shows on there. Mike's on first over on Twitter. He's got that fantastic podcast 2 for 3. He's been taking a little bit of time off, a little bit of a break. He's had some vacation, just taking care of everything there is to take care of. Ron Nuttall, he's always doing TOR stuff, which is my comedy relief for the week. So on Thursday nights at 7 or 8, whenever they decide to get on there and actually do the show, I always get a kick out of him and Pete, part-time guest Elliot, part-time guest host. I always get a kick out of those guys and have a lot of fun with them. And sometimes I pop in like I'm popping in with you guys here now and visit with them. Also there, I got to give my boys over at the XFL STL show a shout out. The Dirty One. He doesn't like me saying his normal name because he's big into the whole moniker. He wants to kind of keep that thing. But Dirty and A-Train, Arlington Lane, and I call him Will the Thrill because I grew up with, Will Clark being Will the Thrill. So I just always joke about that, but they call him the Insider, the XFL Insider, because he's always manages to get the inside scoop of what's going on with the XFL and some of these sub-leagues and things like that long before everybody else does. So it always surprises me. But yeah, all that stuff and then some in a bag of chips. We've got other shows. We've got tons of great articles, tons of great writers. I mean, we just have a blast over there. We have a lot of fun, and we just try to keep it light and easy and breezy and simple for everyday folks and everyday people who just want to absorb content, and they just don't want to be blasted by ads, and they don't want to have to, check on something behind a paywall. I mean, that's just stuff that we just don't do over there because we feel that everybody out there deserves the right and the freedom to be able to absorb that information at their leisure, free of charge. It's not like you're not paying an internet server, for your service. So why should you have to pay for that content? So we don't think that's fair, and we do it for the people, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're having fun doing it.
Yeah, that's an awesome website. That's an awesome thing that you're doing over there. So you guys, again, that's gatewaycitysports.com. Go ahead and check it out and make sure that you tell them the usual suspects sent you. So I guess what I had in mind here is I haven't really been following the NFL lawsuit. I'll share with you guys where I'm at on this. I got really miffed when the Rams left, and my wife can verify this. Whenever they announced the Rams were leaving, I took all of my Rams stuff down, save for one Kurt Warner poster and one pennant that I had. And I put it in a trash can and I set it out by the doorstep. I was done. I was mad. I was hurt, and all that other stuff. And that's kind of like, I haven't really followed the NFL since, but I've been paying attention a little bit and catching stuff on Twitter of what's been going on with this NFL lawsuit. Now, Aaron, where are you at on this? How much have you been paying attention?
I mean, other than the occasional little alerts on Twitter saying, hey, something's happened. I'll be honest, I haven't read into it a whole lot. I'm kind of with you, except that I didn't really have that huge of an attachment to the NFL before. I've always been more of a college football guy myself. My biggest attachment to the NFL are my really bad fantasy teams. So I'm not super connected to it. My only Rams game that I ever went to was a Rams versus Saints game because, as some of you know, I used to live in Mississippi, so I'm actually a Saints fan, and that's the only reason why I've even been to a Rams game. So when they left, I'm just like, oh, great. So now I can't watch the Saints come back into town. Like, I'm less worried about it than most other people. Like, I still have a fantasy team. I have no idea how I did this week.
So, but with that all being said, St. Louis invested a lot of time and money and whatnot into keeping this team here. But I thought, hey, we've got fans that are St. Louis fans. That we have to have somebody that knows what's going on. Well, apparently Derek has been on this thing from the beginning, and so kind of now where Aaron and I are at. Why don't you just go ahead and fill us in on what has been going on? Give us maybe a timeline or an overview, and just let it rip, Derek. The floor is yours.
Well, you actually expressed it the best way that it really most fans in St. Louis, honest to goodness, feel about it. At the end of 2015, the beginning of 2016, when they had that vote, present company included too as well. That really made a lot of people mad. That really upset a lot of people, rightfully so, because it was a farce. It was a kangaroo court. It was overseen or oversaw, however you want to phrase it, by a bunch of petulant children with too much money, and they fought like crazy. And initially, when all of this had went down, I was of the same mentality: throw all my stuff away. I don't want it anymore. I'm detached. But the interesting thing for me was it ripped off the scab from '88, because I remember '88, and I lived through that, and then I lived through the loss of the expansion franchise in '93 when we were promised that, and we were almost darn near guaranteed that.
The Purple Stallions.
Yep, the Purple Stallions, of which, by the way, there's something interesting too that I got to show you there. If anybody's ever watched my show, there's the official hat.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was from Starter. It's officially licensed NFL garb. That is the away hat. This was actually the home hat here. Was there, and it's the obviously, again, the officially licensed starter gear. There were several different hats and materials that they had during that period, but I just managed to be able to snag a couple of them and hang on to them for posterity, and that's just what it was. But we've had these failures, and with the Bidwell situation, with the Cardinals going to Arizona, a lot of that is on St. Louis leadership at that time. We could have kept the team, but people also have to understand that at that time, no NFL owner was asking for public money. Bill Bidwell was the first. He was the very first owner to ever ask for that kind of money in order to keep a team in a municipality or in a city. And being of the fact that they were essentially bad for a majority of the time that they were in St. Louis, from 1960 all the way up until 1987, from their exodus, there was no appetite there for there to be, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and let's build you a $200-300 million stadium in the late 80s and put it out there in Maryland Heights and all that other stuff. Which just that we're just not interested. And that's what was supposed to happen. But then there it is. When it comes to the Rams, the sweetheart lease, everything that happened during that time period when St. Louis leadership was told by the big rollers, the bank rollers, if you will, say, get a team. One way or another, we don't care how you do it. We don't care what you have to do. Get a team. We built this facility for a team. We don't have a team. We've got egg on our face now. Get a team. And that's what they did. And they went out and they did this lease. And when John Shaw sat down and was negotiating and going back and forth with the St. Louis team, he just said, well, hey, we want this. Okay. All right. We want this. Okay. All right. We want a first tier clause. We want a 15-year escape clause. We want this. We want, okay. They just gave them whatever they wanted to, because at the end of the day, they didn't care. But what the St. Louis team didn't understand at the time is the Rams really had nowhere else to go. Baltimore was blocked from them because Art Modell moved from Cleveland to there. They were satisfying the situation in Cleveland at the time. Prior to the Rams coming to St. Louis, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were extremely interested in coming to St. Louis at that time and relocating there. Prior to all of that, James Bush Orthwine, who owned the New England Patriots at that time, had every intention of moving the Patriots to St. Louis and renaming them the Stallions. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes in, is that a lot of people just thought he was going to relocate them here and that was going to be that. No, he was going to relocate them here, rebrand them the Stallions, and that's what it was going to be, and they were going to play in the Dome. But then obviously everything went the way of the dodo and went the way that it was, and Robert Kraft exercised his right and blocked James Bush, JBO. We'll just call him JBO. Blocked his right to be able to move the team, and JBO said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to sell it. And there's other interesting bits of information that's in that, and this is where I always say, and this I have to tell everybody this, because this is the most important key factor to all of this. Where we're at right now, this goes back to that time period in 1994 when JBO was trying to bring the Patriots to St. Louis. When he couldn't do that, do you know who one of the buyers was that wanted to buy the team and potentially buy into the team and then potentially try to force a move that they were going to buy out of the lease in Foxborough, which I don't even know if it was called Foxborough at the time. But it was Stan Kroenke.
I mean, that makes sense.
And Stan Kroenke made one of the highest bids at the time to get in, but being of the fact that JBO had little to no love for Stan Kroenke and his business practices and the way he operated, he just said, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and sell it to Kraft for less money. I think he sold it to him for $178 million, $172 million, somewhere in there. And so he just ended up selling it to him and just walked away from it, washed his hands, and that was that. And so then we ended up with the Rams and the sweetheart lease and everything leading up to what we know in 2015. So I don't think we really have to explain what happened in 2015, but we do have to explain a lot of what happened leading up to that point.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest thing, key factor, is there's a lot of people and fans out there that have been following me, that have read my articles, that have watched my shows. And God love them. If you have, that's a hell of a lot of content that you did there. But one of the big things that I did talk about was this didn't start in 2013. That's when Kroenke was in the process of buying the former Hollywood racetrack, which now SoFi resides on. It wasn't then. It wasn't in the beginning of 2013 when he had a secret meeting with Dean Spanos in Southern California at a steakhouse to discuss them partnering together to go into LA before Stan screwed Dean. So it goes before that. So then you say, well, what else could it be? Could it be Jeff Fisher? Because Jeff Fisher had that interview, if everyone remembers correctly. I believe it was on 60 Minutes or SI. I can't remember what it was, Fox. I can't remember what entity that it was on at the time. But he had this interview, and he flat out said, I decided on LA or St. Louis at the time, knowing that there was going to be a pending move. That's, so then you say, okay, well, 2012 is the date, right? No. It goes prior to that. Let's go to 2010. 2010, when Stan Kroenke was battling Shad Khan at the time for right of first refusal to buy the team. Shad Khan had entered a deal to say, hey, I'm going to buy the team for XYZ. And then he turns around and Stan Kroenke files his right of first refusal and buys the team. Couple of things. Number one, he bought the team. Future, history says that. But what a lot of people don't know is that he actually offered Shad Khan a buyout for himself and said, hey, listen, I'll step aside and I'll let you buy this team, but I want an 8-figure sum. Now, we don't know what that figure was. We don't know the numbers on it, but we just know it was an 8-figure sum. Now, why in the world would he pay an 8-figure sum for a team in St. Louis? Because Stan knew what he was going to do. And that's why I don't like the idea when people tell me, Oh, Shad Khan would have never moved the team. He would have moved the team at the drop of a hat. If he had the opportunity to do so, he would. If he would have went through the process, he would have moved the team. I mean, it was a sweetheart lease. Why not?
So what you're saying is that it doesn't matter if it was Kroenke or Shad Khan.
It didn't matter who it was.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was Santa Claus. If he came in and bought the team, he was going to move the team to LA. Mm-hmm. That's what the NFL wanted. They needed an owner with deep pockets to do it. Shad Khan is a wealthy man. Stan Kroenke is a wealthy man. Look at what Khan's doing down there in Jacksonville right now with puddle jumping, going over to London back and forth, and playing that market for everything that it's worth. He's playing Jacksonville for everything that it's worth, trying to bleed them dry. Now we got the Buffalo situation, and they're threatening to move to Austin. So all of this back and forth stuff. So you say, okay, yeah, I mean, 2010, that totally makes sense. And it does for the most part. One key bit of information. When Stan Kroenke was approved as the owner, and I was told this by an extremely credible source that I trust more than anything, that in that owner's meeting, when he was approved as, quote, the owner of the St. Louis Rams, he stopped them and said, LA, baby. And that was in 2010. So we already have information from 2010 when he bought that team that he knew he was moving them back to LA. There was no question. So then you got to even go back. Well, was there a long-term plan then? Remember, Georgia Frontier died in 2008.
Yeah.
She was sick all of 2007. They knew she had cancer. Was she sick longer? I don't know. Was it private? Was it well known? Who really knows to be sure? Was Stan Kroenke planning this? We've uncovered evidence that Stan Kroenke has been paying political favors to council people and Mayor James Butts, who's now the mayor and became the mayor, but paid several hundreds of thousands of dollars in political campaign fund contributions to these political allies in Southern California to so squeak the wheels or grease the wheels, so to speak.
Right.
And this goes back to 2006, 2007. So if I can find that information, if I can go back and look at Los Angeles Times articles and New York Times articles and pull from SI articles and all these different things to find all of this information, what in the hell do people think that the St. Louis Law team has or doesn't have? I mean, the reality is these are very, very extraordinarily smart people. And I will go and just leave it at that there, because anything pre-2010, which obviously there's a lot more, but it's all hypothesizing. It's
speculation.
You're just speculating. There's no fact to it. We've got facts that go back to 2010 that guarantee that Kroenke was planning as soon as he bought that team to move them back to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. There was no conversation. There's like, oh, hey, let's have a talk and let's see if we can't work something out here in St. Louis. There was none of that, because I've talked with officials. So we didn't hear a peep out of the guy. We never talked to him. We talked to his subordinates and stuff like that, but we never had a conversation with him. It was basically, we're going to go to arbitration. We're not going to work with you on anything. We're going to go to arbitration, and whatever the arbitrator decides, that's what we're going to go with, and you're going to like it or lump it. And then obviously the rest is history.
So now the latest I've seen now is that what is it, sanctions? So
yes.
St. Louis is one discovery. And for those of you who don't know what discovery is whenever the lawyers get to cross-examine, go through personal files, phone calls, and they negotiate that in court, and ultimately it's up to what the judge decides is fair game. And this judge has pretty much thrown the doors wide open, from what I understand, that they can look at almost anybody, any owner in the NFL, any of the NFL's finances, records, communications, and stuff like that. This judge has been very favorable to the St. Louis case. So, naturally, well, the judge says it, you have to agree with it, right? You have to go along with it, right? Is that what's been happening, or has something else happened?
No, that's not what's been happening at all. I mean, I think there's been some agreeances on some things, and they've worked together, but the NFL has done nothing from Jump Street. I mean, they've literally done everything they can to throw every hurdle in front of this court, in front of these in front of the lawyers for the St. Louis Law team, attorneys, so on and so forth, everybody that's there. They have done nothing but try to stand in the way to impede this investigation, to impede the discovery process. They have just tried everything that they can. They have literally thrown crap at the wall to see if it would stick. And that's all they have done this entire process. They have filed 9 different writs, if I'm not mistaken, over this period of this lawsuit and have been denied 100% of the time. This newest writ that they have just filed as of, I believe, today, might have been on Friday. I'm not sure, but I believe it was today, to where they're basically asking for another change of venue, an emergency appeal, if you will. I sound a little bit like Dusty Rhodes there for a minute, baby. But they have filed this other appeal, which I don't even understand how this works, to be honest with you. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even pretend to play one on TV. The closest I come to knowing about law is watching Law and Order. Okay,
That's fair.
So that's it. But I have learned a lot, and I have read a lot, and I have gained a lot of knowledge based off of a lot of what I have seen. And really, we are hanging on a thread, so to speak. And the NFL's chances of actually having this heard and winning this appeal, this, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw this out there. But it's the reality of the situation is it's not going to be heard. It's just not going to happen.
Right. And that's kind of what I've gathered, too, from what I've watched, that really, if they would have wanted a change of venue, if the judge was up for changing, because it's the same judge, if they wanted a change of venue, if he was going to award a change of venue, he would have awarded it by now. And there's probably not any new information to come out that would actually change his mind. So right now, from the home field advantage standpoint, St. Louis looks like it's got a really good case. And I mean, anything can happen, right? Because the law is the law. But the way it's looking right now, St. Louis has the upper hand. And which, based on everything that you've told us so far, it seems like they should have the upper hand. It seems like the NFL is definitely in the wrong. Now, that might just be my own personal bias coming out, but that's what it feels like to me. So do you know what the damages are, or what the outcomes of a judgment in favor of the city of St. Louis could be?
Well, that, my friend, is an excellent question. And there have been even greater minds than I that have been pining over that particular query, if you will. Mm-hmm. I would honestly say that I think the reality is the NFL's over a barrel on this one. I think they know it. I think they're buying for time. I think they know the jig is up, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they know that they're, and I've seen reports on Pro Football Talk, that's through NBC Sports. I've seen reports on other legal websites, things of that nature. I've seen a lot of different stories that have been written now on a national level outside of the St. Louis market that says, hey, St. Louis, you caught the tiger by the tail on this one, and now you could twist it if you want to, because you've got them dead to rights. I always say, because I'm an old-fashioned Western kind of guy, right? I used to like the phrase, got them over a barrel, right?
Yeah.
Well, they've got them over a whiskey barrel on this one, and they could just essentially do whatever they want, spank their bottom. It just doesn't really matter, because there's not really a whole lot that the NFL can do about this. Now, the concern that a lot of people have is the appeals process, right?
Right.
And say, okay, hey, yeah, St. Louis court, St. Louis judge, we're going to get out there. We're going to be able to get this thing heard, with a St. Louis jury, and this thing's really going to go our way. Yeah, that's true. It will. But here's the problem with all of that. After all that's said and done and the dust settles and you win your multi-billion-dollar settlement or whatever it is that you win, the NFL could still come back and go, we don't like the way that went down. And then they can go and file for appeals. They could there's cases that they've tied up in appeals for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they've tied them up in appeals for forever. Is that something that St. Louis law team really wants to do? It's this game of brinkmanship. To a certain extent. It's a dangerous game. They're playing chicken with one another, and somebody's going to have to blink. Somebody's going to have to move out of the way or acquiesce. Who's that going to be? Who has the better deck of cards here? Who has the better hand in this poker game? I definitely have to say that it's St. Louis, because they're definitely not bluffing. I don't think the NFL is even bluffing anymore at this point. I think they were early on. At this stage, I think the NFL is just buy time, buy time, buy time.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is a legal strategy. And, I've followed other legal cases and I've watched how people do this. And generally the team with the biggest pockets can afford to run the longest. And the NFL does have some deep pockets. So like you were saying, they could tie this up in court until St. Louis decides it doesn't want to fight anymore or it can't afford to fight.
Right. And
of course, at the same time, St. Louis and the NFL could come to, because what the NFL wants, let's be honest, what the NFL wants is this to go away. And so, like you were talking about, there are teams like, what was it, Buffalo? Who was the other team you mentioned?
Well, we've got a situation now where we've got Buffalo that's already threatening to leave. They've done and told Buffalo, if you don't give us what we want, which is $2 billion, 100% taxpayer funded for a new facility here in Buffalo, we're going to move and go to Austin.
Yeah. And there's another team wanting to move?
Let's see here. We got Buffalo that's on the move. We've got the Saints that are going to be coming up here in the next few years. We've got the Titans that are going to be coming up here in the next few years. I know that the Panthers are going to be coming up at some point, but they own their own facilities, so I don't really know how that's going to work out unless they want to go to a bigger market. The Chargers are always in a state of flux.
Right.
With their ownership situation and everything. You've got the Broncos that are in their ownership situation after I believe Pat Bullen passed away finally, if that's the case. I can't remember for sure because I know he was dealing with a lot of health issues for a lot of years, but I think that he did finally pass away, and that's why they're going through this kind of conservatorship and things like that. Jeff Bezos has been rumored to buy about a half dozen teams in the league. I mean, really, to be honest with you, Jeff Bezos could buy the whole league.
Yo, he
has more money than all the owners combined. I mean, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos has more money than every single NFL owner combined, easily. It's fascinating. So, to go back and I kind of what's that saying in the movie Dodgeball? Duck, dip, dive, dodge, whatever it is.
Yeah,
I kind of dodged your question there a little bit, and the reason that I did that was because there's a lot of people that really want a particular outcome from this. And I am of the side to where I agree with them. I want a team. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way that I, as a matter of fact, I know that there's a lot of people that feel the same way that I do. But there again, there's a lot of people that feel of the way that I used to. Is why would you want to get back into bed with these people after they've done what they've done to you? They've lied to you. They cheated you. They screwed you over. Why would you want to do business with that again? And my philosophy is of a business mindset. I am a businessman. I don't think of these things in a way that I involve emotions. Jacksonville Jaguars, Alistair Fennell. I know Alistair. He's over there. That's another one that's consistently getting talked about. Thanks, Al, for that. But yeah, that's another one that consistently gets talked about all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going anywhere anytime soon because Shad Khan likes it right where it's at, where he can, again, just jump right over to the pond anytime he wants, go to London. But there's a lot of people that feel like, screw the NFL. We don't want a team, to hell with them. I hear you. I understand. I will say this, that there's a lot of those folks that feel that way that have never watched football or never really been a fan of football and didn't really care in the first place. And I'm not calling anybody out specifically, but I'm just saying, hey, listen, at the end of the day, this is smart business. Yeah. If you have an NFL team in your city, you're viewed as big league. You're viewed as major league. If you have the big three or the big four even, then you're viewed as even better. You're a destination stop. People want to go there. And people lose sight of the fact that when you have an NFL team in your city, you have fans that are coming from other cities, other states, other municipalities. They're bringing their jack with them. And they're spending it at your hotels. They're spending it at your restaurants. They're spending it at your stores, buying merchandise. They're spending it on, on things and items and stuff in your market that drives the wheels of your economy. And so it is so critically important to have those things so that way you can make that money. Here's where it gets to be a problem. When cities and municipalities are paying billions of dollars, like Buffalo's getting ready to probably bend over and just give the Buffalo Bills what they want, they're probably going to spend $2 billion to build in this facility. That's where it becomes a problem, because at that point, you essentially break even or you lose money. So it does not benefit you. On the back end of leases, it benefits the city. On the front end of leases, it benefits the team.
Yeah.
It was the same way with the Rams when they moved here in 95. They had one of the top 5 revenue generating, if not the top 2 or 3 revenue generating facilities in the league in 1995. But people don't see that, or they gloss over it. And especially in the revisionist history with the NFL, they definitely don't want you to know about any of the success St. Louis had, or how the fans supported the product, or any of those other things. But I think, personally speaking, I want a team. I think that's the best solution. It's kind of the Cleveland treatment 2.0 from 95, and how Cleveland got their team back.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. A lot of people have now started saying, well, hey, what if we got the Rams' name and history and colors back? What about that? No. There ain't nobody here that wants that. That is such a distasteful thing to me that I wouldn't even want it. I would say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do you a solid. Stan can sit on that out in Southern California, and he can spin, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about his Rams. I don't care about them being back in St. Louis. I've acknowledged the fact in my mind and in my heart that team was literally a rental. That's all it was. It wasn't anything more than that. I still love the Cardinals, as you can see behind me.
Yeah.
I'm a big red guy. Hello, what a shock. But St. Louis, with the Battlehawks and the success that they had with the XFL, it's shown unequivocally that this town is hungry for football, and that if you create a program, create an entity in this market, tailored around them, designed for them, then I promise you, I guarantee you, you will not have a more rabid fan base outside of the Cleveland Dog Pound, the Steel Curtain, or the Black Hole.
Well, I think that stands to reason, because anytime you look at a St. Louis sports team, when they're winning, fans show up. You know, the St. Louis Cardinals this year are a perfect example of that. We demand excellence out of our team, and Aaron, I'm sure you agree with this. But if the product you put on the field, in the Cardinals case, it wasn't necessarily that it was bad; it was just mediocre. It was just okay, and fans kind of slowed down. And there's no way the ownership didn't take notice of that. So I would say the same thing would go for the NFL. Now, I didn't want to derail you, but like kind of my original point is there are all these teams that were getting ready to move, and for like in the case of Buffalo, for the Buffalo Bills to be able to look at the city of Buffalo and say, we want you to fund and build us a $2 billion stadium, they have to have a tremendous amount of leverage. Now, the outcome of this case, and this is where I think the NFL doesn't want a judgment, because a judgment sets precedent. And that leverage for all those teams goes away if St. Louis gets a good judgment and it holds up in court. So the ideal situation for the NFL, for Kroenke, for anybody else in this, would be to just get a settlement, because then it's like part of the settlement. Settlement doesn't become precedent. It becomes just kind of, they agreed to let this case go away. The case goes away. The NFL can still run roughshod over cities if they want.
And
so
also, I'd like to add, let's not forget, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, but
No,
I
that's
want
all right.
to
Go
add
ahead.
to your thought. The biggest precedent we're talking about here is the release of the financials. Any of the you don't think that the NFLPA with the upcoming CBA is sitting there going, oh, baby, come on, give me them numbers. I want to see what you got, Sugar Lips, because I guarantee you whatever it is that you say that you have, you got more. And that's, you don't think that business partners of the NFL aren't sitting there going, and why are we paying you 6 figures? Why are we paying you 8 figures for these sponsorship deals? Why are we? You are making an absolute killing. If people find out, and their business partners and other people find out how they operate and how they do business, especially on relocation matters, when we've got documentation enough to prove. And I want to also use this for a moment to invite the fans that are watching now or listening to this now or later, take an opportunity and go over and check out Daniel Wallach over on Twitter and Dan Lust. They're two amazing lawyers, and they're following this case like just a couple of madmen. I mean, they're uncovering documents left and right. They're finding out information like you wouldn't believe. They're dropping things like they just drop stuff all day today. And for the stuff that those guys are doing is absolutely tremendous. And I've been working with them too as well, and saying, hey, I've heard this. Have you heard that or this or that? I've given them some insight, and I've given them some information and some documents too as well. Hey, we're working all together. This is all one big team. We want to get the facts out there for everybody to see, not hide it behind some paywall or force you to, assimilate it in some particular way that we want you to. I don't have to really get into detail of why I feel that way. But the fact of the matter remains is make sure you guys go over there. If you're on Twitter, those guys are over there. Go check them out, because if you want to stay hooked up on this, they're the way to go.
Do you have their handles?
I do. It's at Wallach Legal for Daniel Wallach. And Dan Lutz is, I believe it's Sports Lust, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Let me find that up here real quick, because let me tell you something. These guys, like I said, they are so smart.
With a name like Lust, you have to be careful what you type in.
Right, yeah. For Daniel Wallach, it is Wallach Legal, WALLACH Legal, LEGAL. And for Mr. Lust, it is at Sports Law Lust. So at Sports Law Lust over there on Twitter. And don't forget to add their business, because this is actually a venture that they do, because they co-produce a podcast like this wonderful podcast that you're listening to at Con Detrimental. So Conduct Detrimental is the name of the podcast. They're on iTunes, they're on Spotify, they're on every platform that you can think of. They got a website too. Go check out all that stuff. Go check out all their socials, because you're going to find a treasure trove of stuff that they've been dropping and things that they're planning on doing coming up here in the very near future. Panels, different types of stuff to talk about this entire trial leading up to it. There's so many things that they're going to be doing here over the next few weeks to months. It's going to be a big deal. This is must-see TV. And whenever I talk to trial lawyers, because I've spoken to, I should use the proper terminology here. It's not like I haven't ever read a thesaurus or anything like that. Use my grammars. But this is going to be must-see TV. From a law perspective, this is the Super Bowl for them. This is that crowning moment where they finally go, the NFL, we got them. Like we finally, we got them. This is it. This is the smoking gun. This is what we've been waiting decades for. We've got the body laying in the floor. We've got the NFL standing over them with a smoking gun. It's like we literally have them in the process of committing the crime. And they are just wound tighter than the top about this. And that's great for St. Louis's argument, because now what this does is shines a national spotlight on this case and what it means and what you were leading into. And this is my long-winded tie-in to what you said. Sets a precedent, because the biggest thing is that they don't want these financials out. They don't want people to know how they do business. They're terrified of this. This is getting to a point now to where I think we're getting really, really close to a settlement. I think I am strongly bullish on the idea that this thing gets settled. I think this thing gets settled for a team. Now, anything else outside of that, I would be surprised, because we all know the NFL doesn't like to pay out money. So do they get a stadium? I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that be part of the deal. I'd love to see practice facilities be a part of the deal. I'd love to see $500 million in damages be part of the deal on top of that, if you ask me, what I'd really, really like. But at the end of the day, I would be happy with the team and maybe some money to go towards a stadium out in the county somewhere, where it's easily accessible to everybody, maybe out there in Maryland Heights.
Except for those of us on the other side of the river.
That's true. But anybody, hey, us coming from the west side.
Yeah.
just saying, us coming from the west side over here, the southwest, in my case, the far southwestern side.
Yeah.
It would be fantastic. But I really think that we are looking at a time and place now where we really have to focus on what this is and let our lawmakers know what it is that we want. And if there's people out there that say, hey, really, you know what? I don't really want a team. Okay, well, then that's your opinion and you're entitled to that. I still think you're wrong. But, I really feel that I think this would be the best thing. This is a tit for tat. It's an eye for an eye. You stole our team. You took it away. You should give us one back. We were planning on building a stadium. We should still be able to do that. Now, I do know for a fact that the North Riverfront project plan that they had is no longer viable. They have other things allocated for that potential piece of land. But I will drop a little bit of a rumor on you guys, and I want to preface it by saying rumor. So rumor. It's very quiet. So the rumor is that there is 2 sites that are being speculated, hypothesized, if you will, for a potential future NFL stadium within the county. And those 2 locations are in Maryland Heights, and another one is in the Bridgeton/Hazelwood area up by the Old Mills Mall.
Okay.
So there's a couple of locations there. I think that the Hazelwood area is a good spot. There's a lot of open land there. The issue is how it lays in conjunction to Lambert. And how flights are going to come in and out of there, coming out of Denver International Airport. That might be an issue. I don't know. I haven't looked at the diagrams of how that all works out. But I do think the Maryland Heights one is a better option because of the access right there by Verizon Amphitheater, Hollywood Amphitheater, whatever the hell it's called now. It's had 15 different names. But in that region where you have access to 6440, you have access to 70, you have access to 44 that's not far away. So you're in that corridor and you're right there next to the Missouri River. And I think that would be a fantastic idea. Now, the other leg of that is the conversation of ownership. Who's going to own this team? Because we all know it ain't going to be the city. This is not going to be a Green Bay 2.0 thing. I've hypothesized about that, and I kind of threw that out there just as a tickle, but I know for a fact that's not going to happen. The NFL will fall on a sword and go to trial before they ever allow that to happen again. This is not going to be another Green Bay situation ever. So you've got to ask yourself, who's the potentially the most viable person. And let's be frank, let's just go ahead and just call these people out and say who's the most viable individuals that could potentially own a team in the NFL. It's got to be Andrew Taylor, right? I mean, he's right at the top of the list. That everybody, he's kind of, he's always on everybody's lips. Everybody that talks about this, it's Andy Taylor. Well, Andy Taylor is involved with the MLS group. All the girls in Jim Kavanaugh are running that. And they're doing an amazing job over there. I can't wait to get into that facility. I can't wait to watch a game there. That's going to be fantastic. And I would say if it's not going to be Andy Taylor, what about Dave Stewart? Dave Stewart's worth about $4.5 billion. He's got a lot of money. He's got some spank. He could make it happen. But when you go back to Andrew Taylor, he's worth $12.5 billion. Kroenke's not even worth that much.
Yeah.
And so, plus there's, the Anheuser-Busch family. There's all sorts of other different types of people. And plus, let's not forget the Jeff Bezoses of the world. There's plenty of other billionaires that are outside of this market that would absolutely love to own an NFL franchise. The question is, do they want to own an NFL franchise in St. Louis? I think the Jeff Bezos situation is probably better off solved with the Chargers scenario and what's going on out there because of the infighting and the lawsuits that are going back and forth between the sister and Dean. There's a lot of things that need to be resolved there, but I think that you have plenty of ownership opportunities here in St. Louis that can and should be able to run a team efficiently and have great success in doing so.
Yeah. Well, Derek, you've laid out a tremendous amount of scenarios that could come out of this. I feel like I understand a lot better what's going on with the St. Louis lawsuit, with the NFL, all of this other stuff, and what some possible outcomes can be. Before we go, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Cardinals. And so I want to change gears here, and I want to talk a little bit about the Cardinals because I believe that their game is this Wednesday. and that's kind of a big deal. They've got the Los Angeles Dodgers. I imagine it'll be Max Scherzer going for the Dodgers, and we already know it's Adam Wainwright going for the Cardinals. I don't know if the Dodgers have made that official about Scherzer, but that's just what everybody was assuming who it would be. Couple of questions. Aaron, you can chime in on this too. How do you feel about the Cardinals' chances? Are we a successful team because we made the postseason, given what we were doing this year? Are you happy? Are you satisfied? And then, have you guys heard anything more on Max Muncy, because he went down with what looked like kind of a painful injury on Sunday? So, anyway, Aaron, I'll let you go first. Where are you at on this?
I mean, as far as my thoughts on the wild card game, we got a 50-50 shot. It's a weird scenario because, like, when you look at it from a statistical point of view, it's going to be very, 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 very difficult. But you know what else is very, very difficult? Winning 17 games in a row.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't
Arguably
know.
more difficult, because the Cardinals have won 11 World Series and only gone 17-0 in a stretch once.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Dodgers roster, like it's a very funny scenario. Like, I was talking to some of my coworkers that played again the other day. Not really big baseball guys over there, but we were just kind of talking about, like, oh, like, are the Cardinals in the playoffs? And I'm like, yeah, they clinched the wild card spot. They're going to either face the Dodgers or the Giants, who have the two best records in baseball. And they're like, well, how does that work? And I'm like, they're in the same division, and they both have really good records. It's like, well, like, that sucks for the second place team. I'm like, play better. I don't know what to tell you. Like, win more games. Like, win more games than them, and then you get to lead the division. Like, it just kind of is what it is. Like, the Cardinals would have won the NL East. Like, that's just one of it. It's just one of those times where, looking at our opponent for the wild card game, we're facing I would argue the tougher of the two teams coming out of the NL West. I feel like there's a lot of people on the Giants team that have overperformed what you expected them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Kevin Gausman is not a number one starter. He hasn't been a number one starter his entire career, and he's putting up, like, really, really solid numbers.
Gaudy numbers.
Who would have predicted that? Nobody. Like, I don't care. There's a lot of guys on that roster that have played better than expected, and then you also have a lot of guys, or you've got teams in the NL West that underperformed. You have San Diego, who is supposed to be the best team in the division, and did they finish below 500? Like, I don't remember how they finished. It wasn't good. They did the opposite of what the Cardinals did. The Cardinals went on a 17-game stretch, and San Diego, like, imploded. It was brutal. And then who else is in that division? Oh, yeah. Arizona. You've got your AAA team out there. Colorado's not that good unless they're at home, apparently. So they've got a couple different teams that they can just, like, beat up on. Whereas even when you look at the NL Central, like, Pittsburgh's not good. Pittsburgh's very, very bad. But for the majority of the year, every team in that division was fairly competitive. Like, you can say what you want about Chicago. They had that fire sale. They got rid of everybody. Chicago beat us in the yearly series.
Mm-hmm.
Chicago had more wins against us than losses. So, it kind of is what it is. Like, I'm going into this wild card game hoping that Wainwright can give us 6 innings. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a very, very tough lineup to do that against. Regardless of who the Dodgers throw out there, I'm hoping that they can do what they did in that stretch, is put up runs early and then pile it on late. Because for that whole 17-game stretch, they came out of the gates strong, and they finished games out. They didn't wait and, like, hope for the best. They piled runs on, and they need to do that against a team that is as stacked as the Dodgers.
Yeah. Derek, what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. the Dodgers actually surprisingly don't concern me worth a hoot because, I mean, all we've ever done is just trounce the Chargers. I'm still on football here. The Dodgers in the playoffs a majority of the time. But the ones that always concern me is the Giants. The Giants, for whatever reason, I don't know, have always had our number. I think that we've got a good chance if we jump on Scherzer early.
Yeah,
because Scherzer's one of those pitchers where if you can get at him early, and I'm talking in the first couple of innings, if you could put up a 2-3 spot on him early, then you might be able to score 4 or 5 runs by the 6th inning. But if you don't get on him early and you let him settle in and he gets that psychology in his head, Mad Max, he gets the thing going, I think that you're going to have a very tough time getting past that wall at that point, because then once he gets into that zone, he gets into that mode, he's going to be attacking guys, he's going to be pitching up in the zone like he does, and he's going to be attacking hitters on the inside part of the plate, and that's just what he does. That's his mantra, that's his MO, so to speak. Wainwright, what he needs to do is he needs to be not Adam Wainwright of old. He needs to be that crafty veteran. He needs to be the new Adam Wainwright. Paint the plate, paint the corners, pitch to the outside. If you do come inside, throw your cutter up and in. Throw your slider or your curveball on the outside half of the plate. Don't try to come inside or don't try to elevate your pitches with guys. You don't have that anymore. And I think everybody's fully aware that Wainwright doesn't have it. And I think he has understood his angle of attack and where he needs to be. The thing is when he comes into that game, is he going to have it? I think that's the keys to pitching. When it comes to hitting, I think that the Cardinals need to be aggressive early in counts. I'm talking the first couple of pitches. You got to be out there swinging, because Max, what's the first thing he does? He throws a pitch right down the center of the damn plate, and you need to be barking at that thing. If you could get on him early, as soon as they come out, and he's throwing that 96-mile-an-hour heat right down the middle, and you're a red-on-red guy like Tyler O'Neill, you're dead red, just know he's going to elevate that just a little bit early on in the game. As he gets a little bit later in the game, you'll start to see that fastball start to sink down just a little bit as he's starting to lose a little bit of velocity on it. But then that's when he starts moving to his cutting stuff, and he goes to his two-seamer, or he'll go to a slider. And, he'll find ways as he gets further along and his arm gets a little bit tired. The keys to the Cardinal hitters is jump on him early, swing early in the counts, and once you get to that point and say, okay, hey, I've got him, then, you can go ahead and drive up the pitch count. But we've got to remember, Mad Max, he's a stallion. He's a thoroughbred. He can run all game long if you let him. But if you get on him and you start getting runs off of him and you can manage to get 4, 5, 6 runs, I think you're in a good spot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that we have to not forget is that Max Scherzer can go deep into games. So generally this season, the Cardinals' strategy, overall Jeff Albert's strategy, has been to work counts. I've noticed during the run that they've kind of gotten away from that strategy, and they've started looking for the right first pitch to hit. So rather than saying don't swing at the first pitch, they've almost moved to a don't swing at the first pitch unless it's this. If it's that, have at it. And I think that's exactly what you were pointing out. Aaron, that's something that you have just harped on all season. Stop taking strikes. Aaron gets so upset.
I hate it so much.
So incredibly upset.
It's infuriating, especially when, like Derek says, like it's a lot of times it's something just piped right down the middle. And like I don't know how many times I'll be watching a game and I'll see that and I'll want to throw something. I hate it. Like, I don't care what on earth you're trying to do. You can call it running up a pitch count. You can call it whatever you want. All I see is you just watched a 95-mile-an-hour fastball that was down the middle, and then you swing at a slider in the dirt. Like, I want to bat you upside the head with something. Well, and it's like I can't. You cannot justify your approach to me when you swing it like all this crap out of the zone and you watch those pitches. It's so stupid. I hate it so much. Like I did it to Carpenter the other day. It's like I'll talk about Matt Carpenter and his struggles all you want, but at the end of the day, you have to admit he does have a very good strike zone awareness. But you know what you also should be aware of is the count. And if it's a 3-2 count and you see that it's that close, swing, hit it foul. I don't care.
Yeah.
Work the count. Keep working the count because, like, dude, I hate to break it to you, you're not perfect. And these umpires are definitely not perfect. So that ball that you think is a ball might be a ball, but he could call it a strike. You know why? We don't know.
Because he's an umpire and we don't have robo-umps right now.
Swing the freaking bat, dude. I hate it. Like I could go on rants about that for hours. Yeah. Because when I grew up playing baseball, if it was a strike, I swung.
Yeah. Go ahead, Derek.
I'm not a Major League Baseball player. I never made it that far in my life. But when I played ball, I wasn't terrible. And it's because, hey, it looks like a strike. I should probably swing. Like, it's such, like, bring it down, guys. Like, bring it down to this level. You want to talk about analytics, all this other crap. Like, if it looks like a strike, maybe you should swing at it. Like,
yep.
Well, I wanted to just, basically reiterate what Aaron is saying. And I want to point out he's dead red. He's spot on. And you've got Cardinals hitters that are in this lineup that are fast ball hitter. Tyler O'Neill is a fast ball hitter. Mm-hmm. He gets a hold of a fastball. He's parking it outside of the stadium in a parking lot. Same with Goldschmidt now at this stage of his career. He's either learned to sit back on balls or he's learned to just choose his pitch. Do you want a fastball or do you want a breaker? Mm-hmm. All you got to know is who's pitching you. That's it. Mm-hmm. If it's a guy that's an older, savvy veteran, he's going to throw you a lot of breaking stuff. It's going to be soft. It's going to be away. If he does pitch you, he's going to pitch you inside. Yeah, it's going to be 80 poo, but the fact of the matter is that it's still going to have cut. It's still going to have some form of turn, pitch, something. And so if you can manage to lay off those pitches on the inside and not get jammed, and you could maybe, and this comes from the Pete Rose school of hitting, right? I'm a big Pete Rose guy. I'm a big fan of baseball through the 60s and the 70s and small ball era, all that stuff, right? Hit for BA, right? That was always my philosophy. Never strike out and hit for BA. And so when you're in a slump as a hitter, what's the one thing we're always taught if we're a hitter? For those who are not sports-oriented persons or individuals, when you're in the box and they're getting the breaking pitch over on you, step back in the box. Mm-hmm. They're getting something else on the outside of you. They're throwing you away. Step in the box.
They're throwing you the sinker.
If they're throwing you the sinker, move up in the box. If they're cutting you inside, step back in the box. If they're cutting you inside and you want to get on something and you want to turn it down the third base line, choke up on the bat. Mm-hmm. You want to control something, choke up on it. If you're wanting to get a little bit more power on it and you know a guy's he's gonna loft you a ephus pitch or something like that, this is gonna be right smack in the middle of your dinner plate, choke down on the bat, back up in the zone. Step forward in the zone. Do what you have to do. Never change your swing, never change your approach. That's what got you to the big leagues. Mm-hmm. Don't change it. And with Tyler O'Neill and Harrison Bader and all these guys, I think, and I'm hoping this, I'm being hopeful here, that they have seen what Aaron's talking about here and implementing it. Go, oh, gosh, I'm a fastball hitter. Yeah, I can muscle those pitches out. Maybe I need to be just going up to bat. I may strike out once, twice in a game, but there's going to be that one or two times I'm going to get a fat pitch and I'm going to hit it for a juicy double, or I'm going to hit it for a triple, or I'm going to hit it for a homer, because I'm looking for that pitch. And once the pitcher figures out, oh shit, he's sitting on, a two-seam fastball and he knows it. Okay, well, hey, I'm going to throw him some breaking stuff. Well, then you know that. And that's all you got to do to change your approach. It's that simplistic. It's not that hard. There's no reason for hitters when it comes into these games, when you're standing there at the plate and these pitchers know you, they know your approach, they know your team approach, you're going to take the first pitch. Mm-hmm. They're going to give you the first pitch right down the middle.
Yeah, if you're a pitcher and I pitch, if I know you're going to give me the first pitch, well, I'm going to get ahead, because it's always easier to pitch when you're ahead in the count than you are behind in the count. Yeah. And so if you're going to offer that to me, I'm going to take it every time. Now, you start raking that ball, then I got to start thinking about pitching a different way. And that's just what baseball is. That's the chess game that is baseball. Adjustments, then the pitcher adjusts, and then you adjust, and then the pitcher adjusts, and whoever makes the best adjustments wins.
And I mean that you can see why the Cardinals struggled for so long for most of the year. Like even when like that interview with Tommy Edmonds, like we never really had this like good approach to the game. It's like for 120 games they didn't know how to adjust.
Mm-hmm. And you could see it.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Because like again, not a professional. I work at a bank, but I'm seeing it. What on earth are you players and this coaching staff not seeing? It drives me insane. But the last month's been great.
Yeah. So that's kind of my point. Whatever you've figured out in the past month, whatever it is that you've changed for your hitters, because the offense hasn't looked the same. This offense looks tough right now.
I mean, Tyler
make sure
finish the year with an OPS over 900. That's
right. Yeah. And like Paul Goldschmidt, like as good as Nolan Arenado's been, Paul Goldschmidt's been better this year.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's amazing that if I would have told you at the beginning of the year that we would have Nolan Arenado, this is before they got him, we would have had Nolan Arenado on our team, but Tyler O'Neill and Paul Goldschmidt would arguably have had better offensive seasons, you guys would have told me I'm crazy. But there's some out there who's like, oh, he can only hit at Coors Field. That's not true. Nolan Arenado can hit, and I imagine he'll be better next year. But anyway.
Let the record show Nolan Arenado only had a 20 points higher OPS than Bader.
Yeah, and Harrison Bader's hit. Harrison Bader has far exceeded many people's expectations this season, and I'm so happy to see that. Now, it took a couple hot months.
Had he not been hurt in June, my prediction could have held water. I was very close. And I did the math. Like, if you looked at his full months in Major League Baseball this year, and I did it. I did all the math and compiled the average amount of at bats that he had per month. Had he done that in June and I think it was like 88 at bats per month roughly. If he would have had those 88 at bats, his home run rate would have given him 19.8. And I said 20. I'm like, I said top 3 position players in WAR. He finished 4, while also playing 120 at bats less than any of the 3. I think Goldschmidt had over 600. Arenado had right at 600, and O'Neill was 519, and Bader was 385. Yeah, I was like, man, what he gives you on defense is elite, and you can look it up right now. If you look at his weighted runs created plus, his OPS plus, whatever you feel the need to do to try to compare to other outfielders, he was an above average hitter, and for 2 months of this season was an elite hitter. He had more months hitting with an OPS over 1,000 than he did the other way around. Well, I don't know if that's true. I think his September finished at 990 something. But all I'm saying is he had 2 months where he was an absolute stud at the plate, 1 month where he was a dud, and then 1 month where he was basically his career average. So all I'm saying is that for the majority of this season, he was a stud. And if he can keep that up, you've got arguably one of the best outfields in baseball. Dylan Carlson as a rookie impressed.
Yeah, and he hasn't even developed into what he can be. And you see how long it took Bader to get there, and if Bader is there, we're assuming Bader's there.
Carlson's still got 3 more years.
Yeah.
You give him 2 more years or 3 more years in the bigs, then you're going to see what we expect out of him. And I'll tell you this, because it leads into the question that I was going to ask. What is the next big thing? Right. I remember early on when people were kind of crapping all over Tyler O'Neill, and I was telling people early on, you wait and see. This kid's got potential. I mean, I watched him in Seattle. I watched him in the minors. I know what this kid's capable of doing. He's got some pop. He know if he could just figure it out and get his bearings about himself. I think that he's going to be great. And I knew that he was going to have a higher ceiling, or he was going to reach his potential earlier. That being said, Carlson has a higher ceiling than O'Neill does. I think Carlson's the kind of guy who's going to crank out 40-plus home runs a year. I think he's that guy. But O'Neill is your Matt Holliday 2.0. He's your guy that's going to go out there and he's going to be smoking on a frozen rope on a regular.
Except he can play left field.
Except he can play left field. Exactly. I mean, Harrison Bader's your speedster. He's your, kind of flippant, attitude. He's your defensive monster. That guy out in the center field that you could just rely on. I'm excited about Ivan Herrera. I mean, he's the guy, the heir apparent to Yadier Molina, to where the organization is so comfortable with him.
The disrespect to Kisner, man.
But this outright disrespect
Absolute
to Kisner, because
disrespect.
I think, and this is from my perspective, because I've watched him in the minors, I watched him in Springfield, I watched him in Memphis. This guy has got it. He's not what Yadier is defensively. I don't think he's ever going to be. I don't know if there's ever going to be another catcher in the history of the game.
I was going to say Yadi.
It's going to be tough.
Yadi's a generational player.
Yeah, to have the knowledge, the defensive wherewithal capabilities of a Yadier Molina. But I would say this, and this is not how should I put this? This is not a rumor. This is not innuendo. This is not me just saying it. This is a spoiler. And I will tell people this ahead of time. You are seeing in Ivan Herrera the next Pudge Rodriguez, the next Mike Piazza, the next big-time catcher that's going to come into the league, unlike what Perez did this year, is going to crank out 30, 40 home runs. Not going to have the highest batting average in the whole wide world, but it's going to be solid defensively. He's been working with Yadier in the offseason, saying, hey, what do I need to do to improve myself? And Yadi says, defense, defense, defense. Your bat's there. It's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that you can't just have a great skill at is defense. You have to learn it, understand it, how to work with certain pitchers in certain situations. That's why Yadier is such a field general, and why I think that is going to be a tremendous loss to the Cardinals pitching staff to lose him potentially. Hopefully he comes back as a pitching coach, just throwing that out there. But to have Ivan Herrera behind that plate, I think you're talking about one more year after Yadier probably retires. That's where Kisner's going to come in. I think Kisner eventually either gets traded or they'll just outright him in some other way, shape, or form. But I think that's the way that it's lining out, and I'm excited about him. What are the other people you guys are excited about to see coming up?
Well, for me, Nolan Gorman is one. I'm excited to see what he can do. I actually got to go down to Memphis. I'm wearing my Memphis Redbirds jersey. We went down to Memphis this summer to watch him play. It happened to be his first game up with the Redbirds, and it was Harrison Bader was there doing his rehab assignment, and we only got to see 4 innings because the mound fell apart. I don't know if you know about that or not, but it was the weirdest thing ever. So I still got credit for a Memphis game, and I'm just nowhere near that city, so I can't really use it. But the ball sounded different off of Nolan Gorman's bat than any other player there. And we're talking about, what's his name, Yepes or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yepes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He played, Harrison Bader hit the ball hard. It's still, whenever Gorman got into one, it sounded different off his bat. I'm super excited about him, and I really want to see what Matthew Libator brings to the plate. If he's going to be what everybody says he's going to be, and he seems to have the stuff. So, future's bright to me. Aaron?
I've got this weird feeling that, like, we've talked about this before, talking about, like, the future, going into, like, maybe this offseason. Like, the biggest upgrades that the Cardinals could have is middle infield.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue, and this is going to be like a multi-point thing. I'm going to get there. With the way Sosa played this year, that could play a part in the Cardinals and whether or not they're willing to spend the money on a free agent. Even though this is the year that if you want to upgrade at shortstop, oh my God, it's right here. Like, you've got options. You've got a lot of options. But one of the other things that could potentially cause a problem is Nolan Gorman, because he's not playing third. He's not playing first. He's been taking reps at second base. Could he move to second base? And if he moves to second base, I do not think that they're going to go out and spend money on a middle infielder when they could just save the money in any two of the three of DeYoung, Sosa, and Edman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could throw any of them at shortstop, throw Gorman at second base. And as excited as I am for the possibility of seeing Nolan Gorman, whether it be next year in a small sample size or the year after, if they don't look at this shortstop market, I'm going to be so pissed.
Well, don't get too frustrated, because I think by next year this time we'll have a DH, and that opens up another position for Nolan Gorman to play.
It's a possibility, but I feel like in years prior I've seen it. Like, I feel like they could very easily play the excuse of that.
Yeah.
Of like, oh well, it's fine. We got the DH. We'll just use this guy. But granted, they've also surprised us. They went out and got Paul Goldschmidt. They went out and acquired Nolan Arenado. Like,
yeah.
This front office is capable of doing things like that, but I always think that they're going to do it via trade as opposed to free agency, even though this is the year. It's been your biggest need. If you look at this team, and whether it's from an offensive standpoint or a defensive standpoint, the biggest need has been middle infield. Your outfielders all performed. Third base performed. First base performed. Yachty maybe didn't hit the best, but guess what? If you look at Fangraphs and you look at DEF ranking, he's still like top 10 in baseball. Not just catchers, everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, you know what kind of value he brings. Where did you really struggle? Middle infield. Like, Tommy Edman as a second baseman is fine. He's not going to light the world on fire defensively. He's going to hit for 250 to 275 average, more than likely. Going to slap a lot of singles, which is fine.
Doubles.
And then from shortstop, you've got two mirror images of each other. If you could combine the two of them, you'd have a tremendous shortstop. You've got Sosa, who hits for a little bit more average. He's got some speed to him. And then you've got DeYoung that only wants to hit a home run and hit 190. Both of those guys are solid defensively. Sosa might have a bit of an edge, but DeYoung gets kind of overlooked. He's a very solid shortstop.
Mm-hmm.
Either one of them at shortstop, I'm not going to be worried about the ball going towards them. Sosa might have a little bit more range, but DeYoung, it makes it look like super easy. Seems like every time he gets the ground ball, throws it across, and where's Goldschmidt catch it? Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, almost every time. This free agent class has, you could arguably have like one of the most feared lineups in baseball if you've got a Carlson, O'Neill, Arenado, Goldschmidt, and then you get a guy like Corey Seager.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get a guy like Carlos Correa.
Mm-hmm. Holy cow, right?
I hate to break it to you. I don't care how well Edmundo Sosa played. I don't care what I've used to think about Paul DeYoung. These guys are better.
Yeah.
And they have the money to go get them.
I would agree with you on that, as far as, because I've said this about Edmundo Sosa. Edmundo Sosa has played extremely well, and I've loved everything he's given us. I've loved the energy that he brought. He's a valuable portion of this team. I just don't know that he's the shortstop of the future. So, you were saying,
we talked about this before. It's like they've gone through this with internal shortstop options. Aledmus Diaz was good, and then he wasn't. Paul DeYoung was good, then he wasn't. Edmundo Sosa is good now.
Yeah,
I don't think his ceiling is Corey Seager.
Yeah,
like, I don't think his ceiling is Marcus Semien. I don't think his ceiling is any of those guys. The only guy that I wouldn't touch is Javier Baez. We don't need 300 strikeouts. We're good. Like, we are good on that.
Yeah.
But, like, you've got 4 ridiculously talented shortstops that are going to be on the market. And you've got Nolan Arenado's buddy, Trevor Story.
Yeah.
I feel like Nolan's really going to push for that.
There's a lot of people that have poo-pooed on the Trevor Story thing. And even internally over at Gateway City Sports, we've had that conversation, and we've just been like, hey, I'm starting to kind of think that this Trevor Story thing might actually happen. And there's like, man, no way. I don't want Story, this and that. But, and people have their opinions, and they're like, well, hey, all of his power is Coors Field.
He's Paul DeYoung if DeYoung could be consistent.
Right. And the thing is that he doesn't hit for a high average. Right. That's a Paul DeYoungish thing.
Yeah.
He's trying to hit more jacks, in which if he gets out of Coors Field and he realizes, hey, guess what? My power's not there. I'm still going to hit 10, 15 home runs a year, but maybe I need to start focusing on the hitting a little bit more. Maybe his average might come up to more like a 265, 275, God willing, a 285. But I mean, could you imagine having a shortstop that hits 285? Holy dog crap. I mean, we're in hog heaven, aren't we?
I still think if he went to St. Louis, bare minimum, he's 25 home runs. I think he's 25 home runs, and you can look at all the defensive metrics you want. You can look at the eye test. He's also a very solid shortstop defensively.
Yep. I think, and if people give DeYoung a lot more leeway in the defensive department than they should. I don't think that he's I've looked at his numbers, okay? And yeah, the numbers kind of dictate that, yeah, he's a pretty good defender.
He's above average.
He's got an amazing arm.
The Gold Glove year that he had was maybe an outlier, but he's not bad.
Yeah, no, he's not bad by any stretch. But because of his hitting abilities, like you had described,
right?
It's just he's not a risk you're willing to take. Tommy Edman is not a full-time second baseman. He's a super utility guy. He's that guy you can plug and play anywhere in the infield or the outfield that can play any position, and he can come in specialty roles. I think that you hit the nail on the head. You got to go out and test this free agency market on shortstops. You don't have it internally. I think Nolan Gorman is probably your future option at second base. So what could you do at second? Is it a Tommy Edman / maybe Edmundo Sosa type of situation?
That could work.
You could move him over there, do a little bit of flippy floppy. You've got later inning guys with Sosa that has great defensive characteristics. You got Tommy Edman, who has better batting characteristics, that maybe you're getting into that position that you got a couple guys on, you're trying to score some runs or whatever, either play catch up or win the game. There's plenty of options.
I think DeYoung could really benefit from a change of scenery. He's got a fairly team-friendly contract. You've seen in years prior that he has the ability to hit at least 240. And even if you look at this year with the amount of at-bats, he's a 30 homer guy.
Yeah. And really, where is he from originally? Is he from Texas originally? I don't remember where he was at from originally.
I don't remember where he's born. He went to Illinois State.
Yeah, he was an ISU
college.
He's an ISU guy. Yeah.
But
I'm thinking of Matt Carpenter was from Texas.
I think he's Southern California. I could be wrong though. I'll see if I can find
it.
But
I think he could really benefit from a change of scenery, and maybe. Because if you go into 2022, one of the other question marks for me is the rotation? Where are we on that? Obviously you got Waino coming back. That is huge. You're probably going into next season with Flaherty 1, Waino 2, and then Hudson, Michaelis, and then there's a lot of talk for that fifth spot. I would love the opportunity to go to Reyes possibly starting, but there are times this year where you looked elite, and then other times where I'm please just throw a strike. Anyway,
when it comes to the pitching stuff, I do want to add to that because Max is going to be coming up, right? And if he wins this game against the Cardinals and they go deep in the playoffs, you can mark my words, timestamp this. He's going to get $50 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get it. There's no question that he's going to get it. If he beats the Cardinals and they go deep in the playoffs or they win the World Series, whatever they manage to do with it, he's going to get $50 million easy. I think that there's still an outside chance that he gets it, irregardless of the situation of what happens with this game coming up against the Cardinals. That being said, there are a lot of excellent options in the pitching department that are out there coming this next year for the Cardinals. They could really bolster this rotation. They have options also internally that may or may not be coming back. They did not have a healthy Miles Michaelis. They haven't had a healthy Miles Michaelis in 2 years. So Carlos Martinez, he's a lost cause. I mean I've been harping about Carlos Martinez for 2 years
for sure.
You've got Alex Reyes. Can you transition him to a full-time starter in 1 year? I'm doubtful on that. Maybe he could be your fifth starter. He could be your fill-in guy, and he could get you maybe 100 innings in a year, but I don't think that he's going to be that 150 to 175 inning, fourth, fifth starter guy. I just don't see that happening. So
I like the idea of possibly, especially if the Cardinals do manage to go after a shortstop, is possibly moving DeYoung for like a 4 or 5 starter. Somebody that can give you like 160 innings. Because like even when you look at Waino, Flaherty, Michaelis, and Hudson as your 4, you've got 3 of those guys that had injuries this year.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw what happens when your entire pitching staff goes down this year. And for a very long time, it was not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Weirdly enough, like they didn't pitch all that great, but like getting Happ and getting Lester and just getting guys that like can, for the most part, at least give you 5 innings and like keep you competitive for a while. Like it's not it's not the worst idea in my mind. If we're gonna actually go after a shortstop, move DeYoung, give him a change of scenery, try to get like a 4 or 5 guy. Get somebody who can just be there and give you innings.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're closing in on an hour and a half. We usually go an hour. That's 50% longer than we usually go. So
Did
what
you see that I had to take my phone off of my tripod? That's because my phone is on, let me see, 3%.
Oh, wow.
So I am now holding it up to my
up to your charger.
Yeah.
Because your jack doesn't work, so you have to use a wireless charger.
Yep. So I'm doing that.
Okay. Well, let me close out with this question. It's just a quick fire question. What is your prediction for the wild card game? Aaron, we'll start with you.
Only because I think it would be awesome. I think that this matchup between Scherzer and Wainwright gives you vibes of the Halladay Carpenter game. So I think Cardinals are going to score 1 in the first, and it's going to be a 1-0 game.
I will die if that's the case. What do you got, Derek?
Guarantee you it won't happen.
I know a lot of Cardinals fans are going to hate me for this, but I'm going to go 5-2 Dodgers.
5-2 Dodgers. And I'm going to say 6-5 Cardinals. I think that the Cardinals are going to get to Scherzer. I just think that's part of it. I think the devil magic shows up. So 6-5 Cardinals.
The Cardinals devil magic.
Yep, and I think it's going to be a comeback win. So I think that they'll get some runs off of him, but the bullpen will cough it up for the Dodgers, and the Cardinals will hold it. And
let's hope so. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong too.
I want to be wrong.
No offense, Derek, but I think you're wrong on this one.
I hope so. I will fall on that sword. Bring it.
Yeah,
I want to be wrong.
So thank you, Derek, for joining us. It was awesome conversation. We'll have to do it again soon.
A lot of info.
Yeah, big show. If you guys are just now joining, go back and, we'll be up on Facebook. It'll be up on YouTube, and I don't know how Twitter works because they're not doing Periscope anymore. If you can go back and watch the video.
Podcast, my mom texted me saying that I looked stoned, and I'm like, I'm listening intently.
It's like, the tie-dyed headband and the beard, Aaron.
I'm like, yeah, bro. Like,
it's the Willie Nelson look that you got going on.
Listen,
so
it's just hating. Like, this is
Willie Nelson or Willie Robertson.
Willie Robertson. It could be both. I mean, if it's stoned, it's probably Willie Nelson. If he's not stoned, it's Willie Robertson.
I mean, like, I'm definitely not, but I guarantee you Willie Nelson is currently at this time.
Yeah. So, just to kind of wrap this up, if our Twitter handles have been on the screen the whole time, go ahead and give everyone here a follow. Also, go over and check out STL Sports. Is it STL Sports Central? STLsports.com?
Gateway City Sports.
Gateway City Sports. STL Sports
GatewayCitySports.com. And being in the fact that we've had this magical, Facebook outage and Instagram outage and everything else, you might want to start going to other platforms and signing up for stuff over there for the latest and greatest news and events and things that are going on, because you just never know when the shoe's going to drop on one of these other social platforms.
Yeah, that was super fun.
If you're currently watching on Facebook for us, you can watch us also on YouTube and on Twitter. That way, if Facebook does go out or one of the other ones go out, we're streaming live on 3 platforms every time we go live. Go to all of them. Redundancy is a good thing. Same thing for Derek and his show. Go over there, subscribe, do everything so that whenever Derek goes live, you get a notification. That way, whenever we go live, you get a notification. All right, so that's all I got, guys. Anything else you want to tack on at the end?
Yeah, Arkansas sucks again.
Okay, Arkansas sucks again. He's talking about football, college football. All right, guys. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you all next time. See you later.
Later.